You're listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more.
What I mean, this is your boy Muggle. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders podcast today. Woo! We got some legends in the building, some big boys that are doing some awesome stuff that we're definitely fans of. I can't wait to talk about this booming stuff that's just blasting off. So many puns with Dynamite Comics. That's right. With Gargoyles, we're gonna be blasting. First up, man, we got this legend in the building. I mean, my man is a creator known for his work in comic books and animation, contributed to the series like Gargoyles. Yeah, it's coming up. Young Justice and so much more. The one, the only Mr. Greg Weisman, Papi. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And then, man, we got another homie right here that's in the building. There's another creator that's killing it in the game. Man, he goes by Nate Tron. Already scary. I mean, it's scary because he's coming up in the game. The one, the only Mr. Nate Cosby.
What up?
How you doing?
I'm just hanging. How you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited, man. We got legends over here, just storytellers. Yeah, touching some iconic brands right now. Of course, I can't wait to talk about those. But first of all, those that I don't know, let me just start off with the big boss that's in the building right here. Greg W. For the fans that are unfamiliar, a little bit about yourself, where you're originally from, and one of the most important questions you probably ever be asked in your life is, what is the first thing in fandom that you ever fell in love with as a young wee laddie?
So I'm from Los Angeles. I'm ancient. So for me, it was probably Speed Racer, maybe Space Ghost, maybe Johnny Quest, but that era when those things were new. I also love Marvel Comics and DC Comics from a very early age, and so I was a superhero kid into that my whole life. Still am.
So growing up as a kid in LA, and especially in those years, how was it growing up with that type of fandom? Did you have a tribe growing up?
There was no fandom. This was so long ago. The whole idea of the geeks inheriting the earth, there was none of that. This was something that if you expressed interest in that, you were tormented for it. You were. When I went to high school, I knew one other guy in my high school who collected comic books. When I went to college, I knew one other guy who collected comic books. And then I went to work for DC Comics out of college. So then I knew a bunch of people who were into comic books. But
finally,
I started working there.
Insane. What about you, Big Nate? Talk to me about you. Where you OG from? And also the same question. What's the first love that you in your fandom?
Man, so I'm from Mississippi. I was born in Memphis. I would say my first fandom, just by proxy, was like, I don't know, the Temptations. And then that was first. And then the Mississippi State Bulldogs, unfortunately, because, a lot of college football down in the South. And I just had to be affiliated with, the crappiest team in the SEC. So, that was easy to move up to New York and become a fan of the Mets, generally speaking.
I'm sorry. At least we won one game.
There you go. But as far as comics, yeah, I mean, it was a very similar kind of thing. I grew up in a place that didn't have a ton of comic shops. Gundog Comics in Starville, Mississippi was the closest shop that I had 30 minutes from my town in Columbus. But yeah, it's like growing up, it was kind of like I grew up a DC kid. So right around the time that Tim Drake was becoming Robin and Kyle Rayner was becoming Green Lantern, like that was kind of my awakening kind of thing. And yeah, and luckily around that time it was right as Batman the Animated Series and something called Gargoyles that was on most afternoons that really piqued my interest. So it's kind of a dream that I get to work on that kind of thing. And fun
Hey,
fact about Greg, that's
hey.
the only shirt he's worn for 32 years.
It sucks in. Let me tell you, I got my man Goliath and Bronx as amongst my toy collection. For real. I
Yeah.
love this series. I mean, when it came out, I was a little bit older in my older teenage years, but I was like, damn, this is higher. I mean, so this is great. So all right, so let me
Yeah.
get back to Greg. So Greg, all right, so your fandom didn't exist really back then, but obviously something happened and snapped within you to kind of get into all this, writing and creating. So what happened there? Like what led you to this lane that's your journey now?
Oh, I just was. I mean, I just am a storyteller. That's who I am. If this were the Renaissance, I'd be, the traveling troubadour going from town to town. It's good that it's not, because I don't play the lute and I look horrible in tights. But
I mean, you tried wearing tights is the question.
yeah,
Yeah. How do you know that?
no one wants to see that. Trust me. But yeah, I've been a storyteller since I was a child, and I had a great teacher in second grade who was very encouraging, and took some of the stories I wrote and put them in a book, and I still have that book.
Oh, nice.
Shelf over here meant a lot to me. To be a second grader and have a teacher say, you're good at telling stories. That meant a whole lot. And so I always wanted to do that, and started working at DC when I was a sophomore in college. I was 19. And then after I graduated, got a staff job there for 2.5 years, and then broke into animation as an executive, and developed this show called Gargoyles, and then decidted I didn't want to be an executive.
Broken animation developed. So how did this whole Gargoyles chat even happen when in the development stage? It's like is your baby? Was the collaborative effort? Like how did the
Both.
see the Gargoyles?
So it was my idea. I created the show, but there were a group of us who developed it. At the time, I was director of series development at Walt Disney Television Animation in Burbank. And I had a team working with me, a team of artists and junior executives. And we put together this pitch, which was really inspired by another Disney show called Disney's Adventures of the Gummy Bears, which I worked on a little bit. It was created by a guy named Jim Magon, and I loved that show. And so we set out very consciously to create a show that was like Gummy Bears, but would get more respect. So it was the 90s, and in the 90s, edgy. Everything had to be edgy, right?
Yeah.
And so we made a few decisions to make it edgier. So Gummy Bears was a show about these cute little multicolored bears that bounced around. So we were going to do cute little multicolored gargoyles, monsters who flew around, and that was edgier. And then instead of setting it in this sort of pastoral medieval world, we had this medieval backstory that would be anything but pastoral, and we put the gargoyles to sleep for 1,000 years and wake them up in modern day Manhattan, and that was edgier also. And we pitched this comedy show, and it was still a comedy, to Michael Eisner, who at the time was chairman of the Walt Disney Company. And he passed. He didn't like it. But my immediate boss liked it, and he said, work on this some more. So I showed the pitch that we had to a couple people, including Tad Stones, who's the creator of Darkwing Duck. And Tad had, this was early days, so he had seen what we call an animatic of Beauty and the Beast, not a final version of the movie Beauty and the Beast, the Disney movie, but an early version of it. But he knew it was coming. So he said, instead of doing all these, we had, this human female character who was friend to the gargoyles. We're like, instead of doing a bunch of little gargoyles, do one big gargoyle, make it more of a Beauty and the Beast story. So Greg Guler and I created the character of Goliath. And we put the whole show through the prism of Goliath and came out the other end fundamentally with the show that people now know, the action drama that we did 65 episodes of back in the 90s, in which we've done all these comics of with Dynamite, Nate and I. And so we had all these ideas for this, and we put them all together in this huge pitch, really long pitch, 40 pieces of art or more. And we pitched that to Eisner, and he passed. He didn't like it.
Oh.
And
oh gosh.
and Jeffrey Katzenberg looked at it and said, keep working on it.
Okay.
So I sat down again and I said, all right, how are we going to change this show? We pitched it as a comedy. He didn't like it. We pitched it as an action drama. He didn't like it. What are we going to change? And I looked really hard at the show and I said, there's nothing wrong with this show. The show's great. The problem is the pitch. The pitch had so much crap in it. All stuff that we ended up using in the show, mutates, robots, all this stuff that we did, the pack, we put in the show, and I'm glad we put it in the show, but in the pitch to Eisner, it was distracting. So we cut the pitch way down. We just stripped it down to this story about Goliath and Elisa. And we had a card for Hudson and a card for Bronx and one card for Brooklyn, Lexington, and Broadway. We had a card for Xanatos and a card for Demona. But really, we made the pitch about Goliath and Elisa. And by that time, Beauty and the Beast had come out.
The TV show or the cartoon?
The movie. The
cartoon movie. All right, but.
And, Beauty and the Beast was something of a hit for the Walt Disney Company.
Oh, hell yeah.
And so we pitched Gargoyles for the third time, and this time Eisner bought it. And once he bought it, he really was on board. He became a great defender of the show, a great champion for the show, as was Jeffrey, as was my bosses, Gary and Bruce and Jay. We had a lot of sort of champions for the show for at least 2 or 3 years. And we got to make the show we wanted to make. Frank Parr and I, who was my producing partner on the show, we made the show we wanted to make. And fortunately, the audience seemed to like what we wanted to make.
There we go. So Nate, let's get to you, kiddo. Yeah, let's talk about that journey of yours. I mean, growing up in your fandom, did you have a tribe, and how did you get into your creative journey? And I want to know your side of what I like to call the promance. Now, how did you guys meet?
Well, yeah, I came from, like I said, I came from Mississippi, and then I went to Ole Miss for one year, and then journalism major, and it's like this I'd rather make stuff up. This is not fun, rather than reporting on actual things. So I took about a year off and did the Walt Disney World college program in Orlando. I worked the cappuccino cart 5 days a week, and then got to go to Disney for free on my off days. But also there was a really good kind of a writing creativity program there, where you kind of it was my first real experience in kind of creative writing, producing sort of stuff. So I dove into that, and then transferred to the Savannah College of Art and Design after that, where they just started a sequential art department. I can't draw at all, but I took every drawing class I could that was affiliated with that, just to try to learn about storytelling, and then completely unprepared for professional life, I decided to go and start my professional career anyway. Up to New York, I did some TV stuff, TV production and script writing for a little bit, but I also I'd been an intern at Marvel Comics before, and knew that the best way to become an editor there is to just kind of be around. so that when some editor has to leave, somebody else can keep their seat warm. And that ended up happening. And so I kind of slid into the assistant editor job under Mark Panisha. And yeah, I was a Marvel editor, worked with Greg Pak and Jeff Parker, Fred Minty, Jeff Loeb, all sorts of people there. And then after about 6 years, I went and started my own company, and now I do lots of different things, writing, producing, and a lot of books for Dynamite, who happens to have the license to Disney. So when when Dynamite approached me and it's like, hey, we've got this list of properties that we're allowed to do with Disney, I looked through the list and I got to the G's and stopped looking because all I wanted to do was gargoyles. And it's like, this is I talked to Dynamite. It's like, this is absolutely the first thing we need to lead with, like that, no question about it. And then when the question came to like, well, who should work on it? It's like, what do you mean? The person that created Gargoyles should work on it.
His daddy over.
Yeah. So, yeah. Luckily, Mr. Wiseman was gracious enough to say yes, and it's a true honor.
Christopher Jones introduced us, right?
Yes, yeah, Chris, because I couldn't find your email address. Chris Jones hooked us up, which I'm very grateful for.
So that no one, not even the NSA could find Greg Weisman's email.
God, I wish that was true.
The problem is
last year I would have loved if that had been true.
The problem is that Greg doesn't actually have an email address. You can only reach him on AIM. So
it was Earthlink, not AIM.
The AOL Messenger with a modem. That's the only way, right?
Carrier pigeon works just fine.
I love that. I love this story of the pro man. So, Greg, all right, let's start crossing lines over here. So, all right, so he said, all right, you got approach Gargoyles. I need Greg. You got approach with this, to do a comic book with my man Nate. How does that conversation go for you to bring this to Dynamite? With the OG daddy twist.
I think that conversation was a little like a sitcom where Nate says, "Do you want to do Gargoyles?" And I'm like, "Yes." And then he's trying to convince me. Like, and I'm like, "Dude, I said yes." Yeah, but look, we really want, and I'm like, I said yes.
Did you say yes in every language? See, yeah, we was whatever.
But it was kind of like that, honestly. I'm exaggerating a little, but not a lot. Where he was like all ready to talk me into it, and I was just like, I'm just thrilled you asked me. Gargoyles is my baby. I was not a one-man show at all. It took a lot of people to create it, but I was the one consistent voice from the creation of the thing all the way through now, and just the ability to be able to tell more stories with these characters that I love means the world to me. It really does. And so I was thrilled that Nate asked me. And like I said yes instantaneously, and he was still, but he had the spiel, he was all prepped to talk me into it. And
I had charts, man. I got to use
going, and I had to literally interrupt him and said, I'm in, it's good.
That reminds me of when I went Metallica tickets on Kayak when I lived in New York. I texted him so many times. I didn't realize I got a message 10 messages ago. Hey, you're the winner. Stop messaging. So I get it. You're Nate. I love the excitement behind that. So when you, Nate, this came to you, and when you brought it to Greg, I mean, did you already have ideas for Greg? What was this conversation like when we were about to bring, Gargoyles right now to the upfront to this new generation of your comic books?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, the reason I'm sure that I gave 20 pounds of pitch into a two-pound bag is because it was like, I just want to be clear that I want the story to continue, this is not a reboot. This is not a reimagining. This is the next chapter in the saga that you want to tell. And I just want to help you be able to do that. And it needs to take certain forms, and it's gotta go into the shape of a comic book. But I want someone that has seen every episode of the classic series, and that just like looks at the visuals and thinks cool to be able to come to this and it's like, oh my god, and what can I do to instill the excitement that I had as a kid, just like watching this and being excited to come home and see it every day. So that was my gig, to bring him in and then get out of the way.
You're making me feel like I'm a big goofball. You said as a kid, and even here, I'm a late old school teenager when this show popped off. But I was in love with Gargoyles when it popped. I was like, yo, this is so cool, so different. Yeah, my brothers are lucky over here to grow up with this joint, and I bought the figures when they dropped. I'll tell you, I want to have all of them, but I had to start, obviously, my man, the Bronx and Goliath. I mean, those are my dudes. I need to get those wings, man.
Bronx is my guy. I'm not anti-wing. Bronx is my guy.
Yeah, I got you. All right, so talk about these stories. Like, what are we leading? Hey, wait a minute. Everybody, listen, Greg. No, you got to show off that geekdom. Look at that. Isn't that a beautiful figure, though? That's fire.
Look at that articulation.
Yeah. And look at that face. A face only your mama could love. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey. So, all right. So you had these stories. Talk about these stories that you had already in mind. I'm gonna start throwing some stuff off on the new story you got coming. But Gargoyle has been out for a bit already through Dynamite. So why Dynamite as a publishing company? I mean, obviously they got the license, you said, but what was it about this particular? What ideas you had that you knew were perfect for the comic books?
Well, I've just been. I keep these, these black and white comic books. I'm sure you've seen them before. I have dozens of these, and I've been keeping notes on Gargoyle stories for 30 years now. And we had a bunch of stories we didn't get to when we made the first 2 seasons of the show. And some of those I got to do when I worked with SLG Comics in 2006, 2007, somewhere around there. We did a year's worth of stories there for Gargoyles and Gargoyles Bad Guys. But I still had just a ton of stories to do. And the thing that Nate and I talked about is, as he said earlier, is that we wanted this to work for hardcore fans, everyone from hardcore fans all the way to people who'd never seen a single episode of the show or read a single comic book with it. We wanted it to work for both. And so we had to introduce the concepts gradually, and I think we did that pretty well in our first 12-issue arc, which was called Here in Manhattan. And we did a Dark Ages miniseries. We did a Halloween special, and we're doing more now. We're in the middle of Gargoyle's Quest. In fact, issue 4 of Gargoyle's Quest comes out Wednesday, right?
Ooh.
And we've got the Gargoyles Winter Special coming. That's what we're here to talk about.
You mean, what Winter Special? You mean this one right here? Look at it, starting with this beautiful cover right there. Oh my God! Hey, yeah, pose him, Greg. Look at it. Hey.
It's a little weird because it's backwards for me.
But talk to me, man. Like, what is this? I mean, you get wonderful continuation of the story. I love that you guys are doing that. Similar to what TV shows are doing nowadays, like with Evil Dead and City of God, right? Where you continue the story as opposed to rebooting. So thank you for doing that, just respecting that timeline as fans. Obviously, because Greg is the daddy here. He know what up. He knows. But talk to me how the stories that you have done thus far has led into this winter special.
Well, the winter special was really Nate's idea. I mean, this is Nate expressed from, just as he did 5 minutes ago, from the moment we met, how much Bronx meant to him. And so he pitched this story to me. It fits into our universe perfectly. And we sort of batted it back and forth a bit. But he's really been the godfather of this particular issue, I'm happy to say. And it's turning out great. I mean, we're still in the process of making it, but so far so good.
But it's a beautiful cover. Who did this cover right here?
That's Jay Lee and June Chung. So yeah, that was the first one done. We've also got covers by Trish Forstner, and that's George Combadeus right there.
All right. I got a few, so let's run down the few that I got 5 for you. So I got this one, right? That's great looking too. Bronx looks so happy. It doesn't look as fierce as the toy right now.
That was the idea. Like that was the idea that's Trish Forstner. So the idea that basically came in was when Gargoyles first got announced, I changed all of my social handles to a picture of Bronx. There's that's the one by Chris Eliopoulos, my co-creator of Cowboy that I wrote. But yeah, I'm a big lover of like holiday special comics.
Yeah.
Like some of my favorite comics are I love a standalone story, and I love something special that's situational for a time of year. Reading like the DC Comics specials and like I believe there's a Tick Winter special at some point. I just love those kinds of things, and I love visually comics in the winter really appeal to me. There's something about like having the characters transposed in just this winter wonderland kind of thing is such a rare kind of experience. It's like you make things so graphic and shoot, but like when you make something look quiet and it's all about being able to focus on the actions with a totally stark white background is really interesting to me. So when I thought about doing a winter special, I just thought like Bronx jumping around in the snow, playing around in the snow, and then inevitably I went to like, oh, with another dog, sure. And then maybe there's other animals and that kind of thing. And it just kept moving through my head of like, this is kind of what I would want to do. And Bronx is the gargoyle that doesn't talk. And so I thought, well, can I most of the time I'm editing, I don't do a ton of scripting, but when I do, it's because there's something that's itching in the back of my brain that I can't get out there. So I went to Greg and it's just like, I think maybe we can do 28 pages without anybody saying anything. And I'd like to try if you're okay with this. This is your baby, and say no. Please say no. And I tried to sell him on saying no like 8 times. I gave him every opportunity to back out of this and say.
Let me ask this. So, Greg, is this kind of normal with Nate? I had a friend like this growing up that no matter if something happened, he would apologize 50 million times. I'd be like, all right, bro. Like, you know what? I'm about to make you feel sorry if you apologize one more time.
No, I wouldn't say that characterizes our entire relationship. There's an aspect of that here, I guess. He and I appreciate this. He's very respectful of my insane territorialism about a property I don't own. And I appreciate that. And but I've collaborated with a lot of people on Gargoyles over the years, starting with the writer Michael Reeves, as I mentioned, Frank Parr, and many, many others, Carrie Bates, Gary Sperling, Bryn Chandler. So, I'm happy to collaborate with Nate on this. And he had a real clear idea for what he wanted this story to be. And I said, let's go for it. And I had some adjustments that I wanted him to make, which I beat into him. But otherwise, no, it was not like that.
Which is amazing. It's like
comic geeks, you have rolled up comic book coming out your back pocket, and you start like, all right,
yeah, long distance, 3,000 miles away. No, I mean, there were some things that I suggested, and so there were some aspects that we met in the middle, but basically what he pitched to me, I liked. So I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel on his story because I like his story. And if anything, I think Nate started off feeling like it needed more introduction with more characters at the beginning. And I'm like, I don't think we need all that. Let's just get right into Bronx, and so I hope what I did is give him the freedom to execute the kind of story he wanted to tell.
Ooh, let me ask Nate, do you feel you had that liberty then? Coming from the man himself, to create the
I,
stuff
I,
you
I feel like Greg continues to hold me back.
want.
Creatively, I'm choking. No, it was, I mean, it was like, you send something you send a gargoyle story to the creative gargoyles, and you just like, I was just in a clinch for
Yeah.
like 7 hours. It's just like, okay, well, he's gonna completely hate all of this. And he came back with, like, the crazy thing is, like, I a big part of my day is just like dealing with notes, like reading notes, interpreting notes, determining what's a good note, what's a bad note, how to make a bad note a good note. And like, these notes came in, and I think I told him as much. It's like, they were so obviously great notes that made the story better, that I was kind of like, thank you. Like, thank you for giving me this note, because like, this does make it clear. This does help me say what I wanted to say in the first place. So I think that's the kind of collaborative note that is just such a pleasure. Like, being able to put away ego and all this, oh, my vision and things like that. It's like, no, this is the best version of the story that we can make here. So I'm very appreciative and honored that Greg agreed to it, and that he's been collaborating with me. It's great. It's been great.
I love it. I mean, this book is dropping anyway in December of the. Do you know the official drop date yet in December?
I believe it is 12/18. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Look, folks, 12/18. So right before Christmas, a wonderful stocking stuffer for the comic fan in your life, especially gargoyles. What? Come on now. You put this in their
Yeah.
stocking, have these kids check this beautiful book out. I mean, it's gonna be fire. So, again, you
And
said
sorry, I just wanted to shout out also, it's like, this does also didn't come together without George Comedeus. He
right.
was the artist that paired
That's
up with
what I was
Greg
about
at the
to
beginning.
ask. Thank you. Yes, I'm gonna ask, like, who's the artist behind it that you decided to work with, and how did you choose him?
Well, for me, it was just like George. George was the guy that we brought in from the very beginning to do the first 12 issues with Greg. And so for me, like it kind of course, the show is imprinted on me forever. But like, after 12 issues, like, the way George draws it is the way that I kind of see gargoyles. So as I was looking at this, his version of Bronx is the only one I was seeing. So especially with a story where we're going out of our way to not use dialogue, like, who do I trust to show visually what's happening in the story? And it was George all the way. So super excited for him to take the lead, honestly, in what you see in the storytelling.
Yeah.
I love it. It's like the G.I. Joe Storm Shadow Silent issue. This, right? That's what this is.
Yes, 100%. Yep,
This,
that's the mode.
this is not going to be an iconic issue. And again, Greg, when that idea of a silent issue was presented, just using the artistry, obviously with with a theme in the artistry. How did you feel about that? Have you done that before? Just like that in silence, done a comic before? How did you approach? Feel?
I've done it on. I've done that kind of thing in television. I haven't personally done it in comic. I've done sequences, silent sequences,
Okay.
but I haven't tried doing an entire or nearly an entire book without dialogue before. But I was game for it. And like I said, I think, once we sort of decided that's what we wanted to do, we sort of had a little bit more bookending of dialogue. And I'm like, let's have less of that. Let's get that down as much as to nothing as possible. If we're going to do it, let's do it. And again, Bronx is the perfect character for that. He's a gargoyle beast, which means that, he's got canine qualities, but he's not truly a dog. He's a whole other species. And so he's pretty intelligent. We've shown that in the show. We've shown it in the comics that he can understand things. He doesn't talk, but he is a smart guy, but he's an animal. And we just thought this is the best way to sort of tell a story from his point of view. It's something that we kind of wanted to do. Even going back to the TV series, I mean, we have an episode of the original series called The Hound of Ulster, where Bronx, there are cutaways to Goliath, Elisa, and Angela, but basically Bronx is off on his own, having his own adventure, and he's dealing with humans. So the humans are talking. But I like this where he's basically not dealing with humans so much, and so most of the issue is silence, sound effects, that kind of thing. It's it feels like something really fresh for us, but really fits with our universe and our series.
So,
Yeah, just to say, the spirit of the story very much came from some of the stuff that I love so much about Gargoyles in particular, which is when I love the lore, I love the battles with Xanatos and Demona and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things I really connected to was just like the downtime in the show, like with Lexington and Broadway and Brooklyn, like learning about modern things, or Hudson watching TV all night while other people went on patrol, just like seeing what these guys did when they weren't battling evil, when street crime was not going on, or they didn't have to stop a laser from firing. It's just like watching them play games, watching them figure out computers, watching them eat things. It's like, that is so cool. And so the idea of like Bronx not going, like he doesn't want to spend a snowy night in New York watching TV, and he can't go on patrol with the other guys. So he's going to go exploring, it's like he's got the whole city to himself. It takes place in a snowstorm. So all he's got to do is just like get down the hill or get down the building, and then just New York is his.
Well, is a giant cat. All right, gotcha.
Pretty much.
Is there anything in this particular special that alludes to the future of maybe Bronx and or the Gargoyles, and in these future stories? One shot, one and done. Are you teasing anything here that for the fans that they need to put the stuff? You got to tease anything? Let's go.
Well, like Greg said, it's of a piece with the overall continuity, but for the winter special especially, we wanted we wanted this to stand on its own. We wanted this anybody, like I could give this to my mom, which she's a big fan of me. She give her a copy and let her understand it, give it to my cousins who are 4 years old, give it to people my age, just like, hey, here's a story that anybody would be able to pick up and read. So that's kind of been the target audience.
I love that. How do you feel about that? Again, creating stories for everyone, be able to read, from the kids to us old young folks.
That's the bread and butter of the property. We want this to work. And from day one, back in the 90s, we wanted this to work. Disney sort of said to us, your target is boys 6 to 11. I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll get those. But I'm like, I'm not settling for that. First off, I want girls too. I don't know what the magic is about
girls, boys 5 to 65 right now.
Yeah, and we can go younger because these are monsters and there's explosions and stuff. Little kids will like this. Maybe not 2-year-olds, but we can go younger than 6, and we can go older. And so we had from day one this pretty broad fan base that went all the way from, I don't know, 4 or 5-year-olds all the way to college age. I mean, you two were different ages back then. You both make me feel old as hell, but
this is white down here, my brother. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I know. But you're saying you were a teenager when it came out, and I was 30.
All right. Yes, sir.
But that's fine. I'm good with that. It's been a good 30 years for me, and it's been half my life, more now, just over half my life now, working on this property in one form or another. And we've always wanted it to be for lack of a better term, a big tent property, something that worked for a lot of people across a lot of demographics, across a lot of, we wanted it to be inclusive. We worked really, that was a priority for us back in the day. It's still a priority for me. And we wanted people to feel like they could look at this show and see a piece of themselves in it, whether they were 4 years old or 40. And I think we've been fairly successful at that. We just had a convention in Minneapolis, 30th anniversary convention. We had a bunch of the actors from the show there, a bunch of artists, a bunch of people who worked on it to various degrees. And we just had a blast celebrating it. Fans who've been fans for 30 years and fans who just discovered Gargoyles through the Dynamite stuff, who've been fans for 1 year, and
crazy. Thanks for aging for 30 years. My God, I'm 49 right now. So see 19. Jesus Christ, bro.
I'm 61. So again, I'm winning.
I just celebrated my 14th birthday. So
there you go.
Yeah. Oh man,
came out. Nate was in negative numbers.
Okay, now I gotta mark this video for children on YouTube. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, don't say the H word, Greg. It offends my sensibilities.
So let me ask, bringing this to Dynamite, how is it? How great is it to work with Dynamite and the franchise, the liberties? Being able to get stories out there through the Dynamite brand. Because when they brought this to me, I was like, heck yeah, I want to talk to these guys about the greatness that's Gargoyles is popping. No way, I'm not gonna miss this up.
Dynamite's been awesome as far as just Disney has a lot of standards and practices that need to be followed, and they need to be respected because they're a big brand. But Dynamite has been totally on board with what we've wanted to do. Like Greg, bringing Greg on was no fight at all. So they embraced it, and they've pushed it in marketing, and it's just been it's been great. They just let us do our thing.
Yeah, it's been terrific. They've been fantastic partners. Disney's been a good partner too. Again, for me, it's pretty straightforward and simple. They're giving me the opportunity to tell stories in this universe with these characters, and so I'm thrilled by that.
Excellent.
And yeah, we've done Kickstarters, and we've done
Kickstarters, man,
tracks and comics and stuff. It's been terrific.
I dig it. Yeah, man. Everybody's getting into the Kickstarter, the crowdfunding. I seen you guys when you've done that. So great stuff. Now, I know we're coming up to the end of the year. Very few conventions left. Are you guys going to be making any appearances? Let me start with you, Nate, on this one. You making any appearances for the rest of the year?
Not planning on it. No, I don't think so. I'm gonna go for Friendsgiving in San Francisco. Is the only trip I got coming up. Find me in San Francisco.
But do you Festivus as well?
Why not?
Hey, let's go. What about you, Greg? Anything coming up?
No, I think I'm done with conventions for the year. I'm not opposed to going to one, but no one's asked me. I don't know of any left, actually. I'm sure there's probably a few, but I'm traveling for Thanksgiving to see my kids who live in Washington D.C. and then we'll trip around between Christmas and New Year's, another family trip. But I'm mostly just here in Los Angeles enjoying the nice weather.
I know. See, he says that on purpose because I told him I'm freezing over here in Mass. It's more 1 degrees. He's like, it's 70 over here.
I just like twisting the knife.
I know, he's hurting me. I'm bleeding. I'm just hiding. I'm wearing a sweater, so now you're going to see all the blood coming out of me right now. I'm only playing. But Greg, Nate, you guys are just amazing creators. Thank you for this franchise that's here, this Gargoyles franchise, Greg. What you did here, and then having Nate in the comic book version with Dynamite, digging it. I got the first several issues. I got to keep getting. I got to go back to my comic book shop and pick up the rest. To be honest, but I got like the first 4 issues, and I'm digging it. I got my figures. They've created something so awesome that, I mean, this old guy definitely, even as a late teenager, still was able to get into something new at that time. Like, yo, this is fire. Like, what are you guys doing to me? You know, a nice serious cartoon. I mean, the voice actors you had at the time too. Shit. What? It's like legendary. Thank you guys for real for what you guys do, for the entertainment you guys bring, for taking people out of their space sometimes. The world is crazy right now, but what you guys do, definitely take us out of that space where we could have some fun, be some place that may be looking wild, but it's not as crazy as this world right now. So thank you. And folks, please, I've been showing this off. So, you know, big shout out, follow Greg on X at Greg_Weisman. All right, that's 1 S, not 2. Go to the website as well as askgregweisman.com. You can follow Big Nate over here at X at Nate Cosby, and also on IG at Nate Cos Boom. Hey, because he's bringing the boom. That's right. You know what it is. But most importantly, folks, go to your local comic shop right now. Gargoyles Winter Special #1 is dropping in December 2024. It's $5.99 cover price. I mean, listen, you have comic book fans in your life, go to the local comic shop, get this book, put that in their stocking. Wonderful gift. Not even the other one to the bender. Please don't do that. It's a nice foldable, you know, nice box. Not just one comic. Get the couple first issues too. Spend that paper. Show support for this. Get everything. Get some figures too. All that gargoyle as well. Listen, I'll show you guys my figures on the P3 podcast. You can see how beautiful they are. So you better tune in on Monday, and I'll show you these dope pictures. And remind you gotta watch this show, because let me tell you, like, these are the boss. Did you hear all this stuff they're talking about gargoyles?
Yeah, it's available on Disney Plus right now. So
my God,
watch it.
Oh my God, that's
good show.
Hey, that's right. Listen, it's a good show. Nate, please, it's a great show. It's fire. Greg, thank you. Nate, thank you. My
thank you, Al.
I watch shows right there. Right there. Damn, this is gold, baby. They are loving you guys. Yo, you guys rocking and rolling. Follow everything Comic Cities. You know what it is. Every place else. I appreciate you guys. You know what it is. Hasta la próxima, mi gente. Much love. Wepa!
Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.com and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.